Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Monday, the 14th of June, 2020. Happy Monday. I hope you had an enjoyable weekend, a safe weekend. I hope your family is COVID-free as well as yourself, and that all your needs as far as food, shelter, and clothing and health are being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field, that are trying to save lives, and those that pick up garbage for us, and those that make deliveries for us for our convenience. Double blessings on those trying to deliver boys and girls, men and women, children, teens from the clutches of sex, slave, and human trafficking operations. Blessings also upon those that are seeking to help the homeless, 500,000 at least in the United States, and millions worldwide that don't have a roof over their head, men, women, children, families, and veterans. Blessings upon those trying to help this situation and on those unfortunates that are in this situation. So, it is now off season for the New York Knicks. And I wanted today to just clarify some things because a lot of people get confused. And the reason, and it's not just their own fault why they get confused. The media puts out a lot of stuff to sell information, to excite the base, to get clicks, especially with regard to the New York Knicks because of the largeness of our Knicks nation, of our fan base. And so they put a lot of people's names, a lot of players' names in the atmosphere, and people start thinking, let's go after this one, let's go after that one, let's trade this, let's trade that. But I wanted to clarify some basic information today so we have an understanding, at least those on this channel, of what we're dealing with. There are players that are unrestricted. There are players that are restricted. And then there are players that are under contract and not available. For example, many people are mentioning De'Aaron Fox. He's not available. He's under contract with the Sacramento Kings. Many people are mentioning, for example, we mentioned Zach LaVine. Technically, he's not available. He's under contract with the Chicago Bulls. Now, if either of these players or anyone like them that's under contract decides they want to be traded, then we can discuss the trade possibilities. That would be a trade. They're unavailable other than that. We can't just say we're going to go get them. They're not available. Okay? Jonathan Isaac is not available. Even Damian Lillard is not available. They're all under contract. CJ McCollum is under contract. He just signed a $100 million extension. He's unavailable. Okay? So those players are really off the table. So when you're talking about the Knicks should go get this one, go get that, you have to understand, if they're unavailable, then that means we have to trade somebody. And then you're talking other types of scenarios, which I don't like to get into. For myself, I don't like to speculate about these things, only about what the players themselves say. And sometimes the players say things without saying anything. For example, if a player is in the last year of his contract, like Zach LaVine, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent next summer. If he doesn't sign an extension with his current team, he is saying he's leaving, or he might leave, or at least he's going to explore his options. So then he would become available. Of course, he could sign the extension, but in those situations, we really don't know until the deadline for an extension goes by, which we don't know yet with him in that example. So any player that's under contract is unavailable. Now, let's talk about the restricted free agents. They're called restricted because while they are free agents, any team in the NBA can offer them a contract. But their current team has the right to match that contract and therefore obligating that player to stay with their current team. For example, Lonzo Ball is a restricted free agent. He might want to leave New Orleans, but they can match any contract offer he receives. And usually a team will do that. They usually will because they don't want to lose a guy that is a lottery pick for nothing. Even if he's not with their team, they want to get something for the lottery pick. In this case, Anthony Davis was part of the trade that brought Lonzo Ball to New Orleans. They're not going to lose Anthony Davis and then lose Lonzo Ball for nothing. So in that scenario, they will probably match whatever salary, whatever is offered to Lonzo, and then figure out a trade. Okay, at that point. So now when you're dealing with Lonzo Ball, you're probably talking about a trade. Very few, if any, teams are going to let a guy that was once a lot, unless he's a tremendous bust and they feel like he's a bust and they just want to get rid of him. Generally, they're going to want something in return for a guy that was drafted in the lottery, or a guy that once they had high hopes for. They're going to want something for him. So they will probably match most of these salaries. Now, in some cases, like with a Tim Hardaway, when the Knicks signed Tim Hardaway to $72 million, Atlanta was not willing to match. But they didn't draft Tim Hardaway. They got him in a trade. Okay? The Knicks traded him, and then he was on Atlanta, and then the Knicks got him back when he was a restricted free agent, and Atlanta didn't want to match. That's a rare situation, though. They normally don't do that unless it's a really huge, ridiculous contract, and that has happened. There's been times when players have signed, offer sheets that they knew that their home team wasn't going to be able to match. But that doesn't happen all the time. Now, in Lonzo Ball's case, he's talking $20 million a year. I don't want the Knicks to sign him for $20 million a year. If Chicago does, they can have him. But I'm saying that's generally the scenario. So he's restricted. He's a restricted free agent. Who else is restricted? I'm looking at the list right now. Lonzo Ball is restricted. I'm saying somebody we might be interested in. There's a lot of restricted players, but Devontae Graham in Charlotte, he's restricted. So Charlotte can match whatever salary is offered to him. Okay? Now, in this scenario, the Knicks could give him an offer of, say, $12 million a year. And I don't think Charlotte would match that because they don't want to pay him and Scary Terry. And they know they got other players. They got Miles Bridges. They got to come up with a player for him. They got a PJ Washington. They got to come up with something for him. And of course, there's LaMelo Ball. Eventually, they're going to have to pay him. So this might be a situation, but he is still restricted. They have the right to match. And then they might require a trade. Okay? So restricted free agents have that situation. Kendrick Nunn with Miami, he's restricted. Duncan Robinson is restricted. All of these guys are restricted free agents, which gives their teams the first dibs at them. So it's harder for you to get a really good player that's a restricted free agent because the teams know they're good. They're not going to give them away for nothing. They're not going to let them walk like that. Okay. So that's the restriction. So the best opportunities for us as Knicks fans, as the Knicks nation, is to get unrestricted free agents. You don't have to pay anything but money. So unrestricted free agent is free to go. He's free to go. Nobody can stop him from going. Now, a team can request that he do a sign and trade for the good of the team. And some players will do that just because they want to. But they don't have to. They're unrestricted. Okay? Now, when you're talking about, for example, the point guard position. In the point guard position, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, these guys are all unrestricted. They're going to be unrestricted free agent. Okay, Chris Paul, when he opts out, expected that he's going to opt out. Chris Paul, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, Goran Dragic, Dennis Schroeder, Spencer Dinwiddie, Lonzo, not Lonzo, but these guys are all unrestricted. That means they could go wherever they want. Okay, and so in the scenario we're talking about point guards now for this example, you don't need to go get a restricted guy and come up short while an unrestricted guy signs with somebody. So especially when you got some good unrestricted options. So you got Chris Paul, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, Dennis Schroeder, and Spencer Dinwiddie. You got 5 really good unrestricted options. These guys are not obligated to their current teams at the end of the season. They could leave. Okay. And all you're doing is signing them to money. They're not losing any draft picks. You're not trading anybody. You just sign them. And this is one of the reasons a team like the Knicks stockpiles cap money for a situation like this. See? So we talked about getting Kelly Oubre. Right? Now, Kelly Oubre is going to be unrestricted. He's going to be unrestricted free agent. Okay, let me just look at the unrestricted list here. So you got Otto Porter, Kelly Oubre, James Johnson, Kelly Olynyk, Trevor Ariza. You got PJ Tucker. You got Doug McDermott. You got a lot of guys that are going to be unrestricted. Now, that doesn't mean we want to look at all of these guys. I think from what we talked about Kelly Oubre. Now, he's unrestricted. Again, he wouldn't cost us anything. Kawhi Leonard can become unrestricted. He's got a player option. If he declines his option, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I personally don't think Kawhi is going anywhere. And the reason I say that is because I'll be surprised if he left the Clippers, no matter what happens in the playoffs. And the reason I say that is because look at his situation. He was drafted by the San Antonio Spurs. Okay. And he had some internal problem with the Spurs. Something happened. I don't think anybody really knows what, but there was some issues and he wanted to be traded. So they traded him to Toronto. Toronto wasn't a team he wanted to go to because he's from California. But he spent his last year as a restricted guy in Toronto, and they won the championship. Then as an unrestricted free agent, he chose the Clippers because that's where he's from. Okay. And when he went there was some conversation that convinced Paul George to force a trade there. And so him and Paul George are there. They're home. For them, that's home. So they're getting their money. They're on a good team. They got a good coach in Ty Lue. They're home. I think if they lose, they're just going to continue to run it back next year and see if they can maybe add a ancillary piece and win, because I think they're home. I don't think they're going anywhere. Okay. If Kawhi does opt out, probably just going to get a longer term deal with more money. That's all. But I don't think he's really going to be available because he's a player option. But then you got Kelly Olynyk. We talked about Kelly Olynyk. He's 30 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He's a nice stretch five guy that can come off the bench. I wouldn't pay him a whole ton of money, but he got $12.5 million in this past season. I don't think he's worth more than that again, and he'll be a good stretch five option. Fundamentally sound, high IQ, nice stretch five option. He's unrestricted. You want shooters, you got Doug McDermott. He's unrestricted. Coming from Indiana, we had him on the Knicks before. He didn't shoot the ball on the Knicks as well as he could have, but I think that was a function of the offense. He is a good IQ player. He cuts to the basket very well. He's unrestricted. He's available. So let's look at, when you're talking about possibilities, you have to look at guys that are available, not unavailable. People that are under contract are not available. So, like I said, Duncan Robinson, tremendous shooter, but you gotta be crazy if you think Miami's gonna let him walk. Any deal you offer him, they're gonna match, and they're not even gonna talk about trade. They want him. Shooters like Duncan Robinson that could also play defense are worth their weight in gold in the NBA, and so he is not going anywhere. He's like Bullock, but he's a couple of steps higher than Bullock because he's younger than Bullock. He shoots better than Bullock, and his defense is definitely coming out of Miami system just as good as Bullock. So he's worth some money, and he's not going anywhere. Miami's not. So what I'm saying is people will offer, well, why don't we go get this one? You can't just go get people. Okay. It's not like that. You could go try to get them, but you can't necessarily pull off a deal, especially if a guy is as valuable as that. Laurie Marketing, he's a restricted free agent. Now, there's been word out of Chicago for the last 2 years, since Jim Boylan was there, that he doesn't like it there, that he's not happy there. So he might be available, but he's going to cost you. They're not going to just let him walk for nothing. Okay, he was an overall, I think, number 8 pick. They're not going to let him walk for nothing. So you got that as well. John Collins is restricted, and he said he wants $100 million. Now, in this scenario, if some team signs him to $100 million, Atlanta can match it, or they may not. I think they're going to try to match it and do a sign and trade. He's too valuable. Again, he's another guy that's a really good player. He's really valuable in their system. If they don't want to pay the $100 million, they're going to try to get something back for him. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so we need to look at, as Knicks Nation, the first cupboard is the unrestricted cupboard, because these are guys that we could get. And there's, like I said, there's a number of guys. Like I said, we could get a Kelly Olynyk. Let's say Nerlens Noel walks. He only got $5 million this year. That was him trying to show, that's him betting on himself. And I say he won that bet because he played excellent defense this year. So let's say some team decides they want to pay Nerlens Noel some money and the Knicks don't really want to pay him that. We can go get a Kelly Olynyk in place of him, and he could back up Mitchell Robinson, as a stretch five. So, we got options. So we're looking at that. We mentioned Kelly or Oubre already. The two Kellys, I guess, Kelly Olynyk and Kelly Oubre. But Kelly Oubre, already I like him a lot. I don't like Otto Porter, even though Otto Porter is only 28 years old. He's coming off $100 million deal. I mean, he seems older than that. When you see him play, he seems like, and he's in his 8th year in the league. It seems like, I don't know if it's injuries or whatever, but he just, maybe, I haven't looked at him closely enough, but he doesn't seem like a guy we want. He seems older than his 28 years. Like he's got more mileage on that new car. You know what I'm saying? You might get a car that's only 3 years old, but it might have 200,000 miles on it versus a car that's 8 years old and only got 60,000 miles on it, So he seems like he got a lot of miles on that thing. Doug McDermott is another guy we might want to look at. If we lose a Bullock or if we lose Alec Burks, this guy's another shooter, 29 years old, coming off the bench. He's not going to cost a whole lot either, Doug McDermott. He made $7 million last year. I think we can get him for like 7, 8, maybe 9 this year. And he's a guy we can get on a short-term deal, like a 2-year deal. I think we could do that with him as well. Then, of course, there's our own. We talked about Reggie Bullock, Alec Burks. These are unrestricted free agents. Nerlens Noel, they're all unrestricted free agents. So, I mean, I don't know who the Knicks are going to keep. My guess it would be they're going to keep Bullock because Bullock has had a good relationship with Scott Perry. Remember, he came to the Knicks, signed a deal, then he failed the physical because he had a neck bulge in his neck, a bulging disc in his neck. So they gave him a smaller contract. He had signed like an $8 million contract. They gave him a $4 million contract and they let him heal. And then he came back second half of that season. And then this season, he came on like gangbusters. He's good with the management. And of course, we saw Tom Thibodeau loved Reggie Bullock. I mean, he really depended on him to guard the other team's best player. I think to his detriment. I think Reggie Bullock will be best coming off the bench. That's why if we get a Kelly Oubre or a wing player in that realm, in that area that could start a starter, Bullock will be really good for us in our second unit. But these are guys that are unrestricted and available. Some of them I want to stay away from. Like I say, Nicholas Batum. He's playing his butt off for the Clippers right now. He was a tremendous player when he played for Portland, but then he got paid in North Carolina with the Hornets and didn't do anything for the whole time. He got almost 90-something million dollars and didn't do anything. Either he was hurt or out of shape or both. Then he goes to the Clippers and now he's playing. I wouldn't want to take a chance on a guy like that, But you have some players that are, we want to look at. Like I said, I would look at a Kelly Olynyk. I would look at Kelly Oubre, Dirk McDermott. We want to look at these guys. Of course, we're going to probably re-sign Reggie Bullock. I think Derrick Rose. Everybody's talking about Rose to the Lakers. Rose came to the Knicks. Rose requested to be traded from Detroit to the Knicks. Remember that? Because he wanted to play under Tom Thibodeau. Unless the Knicks really blow this, which I don't think they're going to, Derrick Rose is coming back to the Knicks. Just like Taj Gibson is coming back to the Knicks. I don't think Rose is going to be asking for like $20 million a year. I don't even think he's asking for 12. I think Rose is probably, because the Lakers can't even pay for him unless they use their mid-level or unless they trade Dennis Schroeder for him. The Knicks are not doing that. We don't have to. So I think a 2-year, $16 million deal, it'll be another deal for Derrick Rose. He'll be in. I don't think there's going to be any question about that. He's going to be back with the Knicks, and Taj Gibson's going to sign a similar deal, maybe smaller numbers, to be back with the Knicks. Both of them guys are locks. Those are Tibbs' favorites. They love Tibbs. Tibbs loves them. They're going to be back. Okay? So I'm not worried about Derrick Rose or Taj Gibson leaving. Burks might leave. He only got, see, all these guys that got $5 million contracts, they're looking for more money now. They're vets. So, Burks, he might go. I mean, but we can replace Burks. I mean, we can. He did good for us. But we can replace Alec Burks. He's a bench piece. We can replace him. We can replace him with Reggie Bullock. We get a starter like a Kelly Oubre, we replace him with Reggie Bullock. Okay? Done. See? And so we're going to have a high-level point guard. regardless of which one you choose. You're gonna get it. Like I said, under the unrestricted free agents at point guard, you got a lot of options. You got a lot of options at point guard. And so I'd rather not get Mike Conley. He's a little too injury prone for me. He's hurt now in the playoffs. He's hurt right now. I'd rather not deal with him. Kyle Lowry, on the other hand, if you look at his record, he's been like an Iron Man since he's been to Toronto. Dude hardly misses a game. Okay. And so I'd like Kyle Lowry on our team for 2 years to groom. Some of you guys think IQ's that next guy? Fine. Or you want to draft the IO? Fine. But you got Kyle Lowry that's going to run the ship until your young dude is ready to come in. So I like him. Of course, I told you I like Dennis Schroeder. These are guys that I like at the point guard spot. Any of these guys would work. Lonzo Ball, like I said, I like him too, but he's restricted. Remember that, y'all. It ain't like he just coming. I think he wants to come, and that's a possibility, but how much are we willing to pay? That's what we got to understand. It's two things. When you're looking at a Lonzo Ball or any restricted free agent, and I think Lonzo would be good in New York, and I think he wants to come here. But let's talk about this for a second. When you're looking at Lonzo, listen. First, you understand he's restricted. So whatever offer you give to him, the Pels can match. David Griffin is the GM in New Orleans. He's not going to give Lonzo Ball away. He ain't stupid. Okay, it's not going to happen. So now, how much do you want to pay him? So you got to ask yourself two questions. If you're just looking at it logically, just without emotion, you're the GM of the Knicks. You're Leon Rose, and I'm loving Leon Rose because that's how he does things. He ain't getting emotional about stuff. See, our owner, James Dolan, made mistakes in the past because he would get all emotionally involved and tied up in something and make a bad decision. Leon Rose is more cold-blooded than that, and he's going to look at it the way it really is, right? So you got to ask yourself two questions. How much is Lonzo Ball worth on the open market? Okay, how much is his open market value? Point guards like him, and with his experience and his stats, okay, and his type of upside, what is he worth on the open market? You got to ask yourself that question. Okay, he's 23, fourth year in the league. What is he worth on the open market? Now, just before I give you the second thing you got to ask yourself, let's talk about this for a second. Is Lonzo Ball De'Aaron Fox? Same age, similar experience. No, he's not De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is on another level than him. Okay. Is he as bad as Chris Dunn? No, he's not as bad as Chris Dunn. So he's somewhere in between Chris Dunn and De'Aaron Fox. He's not as bad as Chris Dunn, but he's not as good as De'Aaron Fox. Right? So, okay, where is he? Well, that's the decision you got to make. In my estimation, I think Lonzo Ball is a $16 million player. He's not a max player by any stretch. He is not a max player. De'Aaron Fox is your max player. He's not a minimum guy either. That's Chris Dunn. I wouldn't give him $8 million and call it a day. He's worth more than that. So I'm talking about $16 million. 4 years, $16 million, which is about $64 million over 4 years. I think that's a good number. Okay? But then you got to ask yourself the second question. The first question is, what is he worth on the open market? The second question you got to ask yourself as a Knicks guy, as Knicks management, what is he worth to the New York Knicks? See, that's a different question. See, if you leave him on the Pelicans, you saw what happened. They're all right, but they didn't make the playoffs, right? But if you put him on the New York Knicks and you think he can fit with Julius Randle and whatever, or Kelly Oubre and RJ Barrett in your, well, let's just leave Oubre out of it because he's not a Knick, but let's look at the Knick core we have. Can Lonzo Ball fit with Emmanuel quickly? Can he play with Julius Randle? Can he play with Mitchell Robinson? Can he play with RJ Barrett? Does he fit with that team? And if he does fit with that team, does he help you get to your next goal, which is the Eastern Conference Finals? Does he push you to that next level? Now, I'm not answering the question. I'm saying that's the question you got to ask yourself if you're the New York Knicks. Because now he may be worth a little more to you, than he is on the open market because of that. If you believe he can get you to the Eastern Conference Finals, I still am not paying $20 million, but I might pay 18. I might pay 18. I might give him a 4-year, $72 million deal if I think he can get me to the Eastern Conference Finals. And if I'm Lonzo's camp, the guys representing Lonzo Ball, I want the most money I could get for my client, right? So I'm pushing for $20 million. I'm pushing for a 4-year, $80 million deal. I want more than that if I could get it. But I also understand what my client is really worth. So I would probably want to do something like this if I'm Lonzo's people. I might sign the 4-year 72, but then I might get a player option in the 4th year if I feel like I'm outperforming my contract and I want more money. See? So that's how you got to look at it. And then he's restricted. So Griffin going to match whatever you put out there, and then he's going to want a trade. Okay? And we could talk about that when it gets to that point. I don't want to deal with it now because we don't know who we're going to trade, who not, whatever. Okay? But that's what you're dealing with Lonzo Ball. Versus, if all of a sudden Leon makes a phone call and he say, yo, CP3, you did really good. Y'all want to chip in Phoenix or whatever. And I got plans for you. You could help us do that in New York. And I want you to come up into the upper management when you retire. And I'm ready to put out, some money for you. I'm ready to put out 3 years, $100 million. That might happen. I mean, it may not, but it's possible. And he could call CP3 and he can be right here starting at point guard. Or he can make a call to Kyle Lowry's people. He said, I know you want to go to Philly, or I know you want to go to Miami. But here, we're going to offer you, bang, some serious money to run the show in New York. So we don't know. But that's just money. That's just conversations between the management and the agents. That's all that is. There's no other players involved. Okay? So it could go either way with that scenario. You understand? So I like the position that the Knicks are in. To me, like I said, Kyle Lowry, Dennis Schroeder, CP3, Lonzo Ball, you really can't go wrong. You really cannot. I know y'all all got your favorites, and I got mine too, but I'm not going to whine at any of them cats. The only thing I would be upset about is if they sign Lowry or CP3 for more than 3 years. I would not be happy with that. I would like really, that's why I'm leaning toward Lowry, because I think I can get Lowry on a 2-year deal. Even if I got to pay him $25 million a year, I only got to do that for 2 years. I could get him on a 2-year deal. CP3, from my understanding, is he's looking for a 3-year deal. Okay? And I'm probably willing to do that for him. But other than that, don't go more than that on anybody. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't want them locking up long-term money on these guys. Obviously, they're older, right? Dennis Schroeder is going to want a 4-year deal, but Dennis Schroeder is 28 years old. Okay? And I think he just turned 28. He's not going to be 29 for a minute. So, let me just verify that. Let me look at Schroeder for a second. Let's see what is his. Dennis Schroeder he's 27. He just turned 27. He's 27 in 29 days. So he just turned 27 a month ago. So he's really 27 years old. Okay. So he's pretty young. He's going to want a 4-year deal. Maybe even a 5-year deal, but I think the Knicks can only offer him 4. So fine. If we're going to get him 4 years. Then, of course, there's Spencer Dinwiddie. We talked about him. He's 28 years old. He's got an $11 million player option, which he's surely going to decline because he's going to get more money than that. So, but I don't think he's going to cost us more than like the $16 million we're looking for Lonzo. And again, he's unrestricted. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie, for all his crap talk, about the Knicks, the dude will come here and play. Again, he reminds me of Chris Childs. Y'all know Chris Childs came to the Knicks from the Nets. I mean, if you watch he was on the Nets when, Derek, what was that boy's name? There was a stud player that the Nets had out of Syracuse. I forgot his first last name. Derek something was his name. But, they actually beat the Knicks one year, I think, in a miniseries, but it was them pushing the Knicks. And Chris Childs was talking mess about the Knicks at that time. He was trying to start fights with us and everything. Then he ended up playing for the Knicks. And of course, we know now as Knicks, if you're a long-term Knicks fan, Chris Childs is one of that crew that was running with us in the 90s when we were trying to win championships. We can't be in them, right? Well, to me, that's the same thing as Spencer Dinwiddie. He was playing for the Nets, talking all kind of mess against the Knicks, but he might end up becoming a really good player for us because like Chris Childs, he's not the most talented guy, but he could play in New York, and that's a big plus. He could play in New York. He's not an all-star talent, but he could definitely play in New York, and he'll ball for us. That's all I'm saying. He'll be way better than what we had started this year. Way better. Spencer Dinwiddie. He got the gonads to come out there and play and push in the playoffs. You ain't got to worry about him shriveling up. You ain't got to worry about him getting scared. Not Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Just like Chris Charles. So he's a possibility, and I think we could get him on a very reasonable deal. Like I said, I wouldn't pay more than the $16 million, maybe even 15. We can get 4 years 60, 4 years 64 for Spencer Dinwiddie. I think we could lock him up 4 years 60. I think we can. And so we got him as a possibility. And again, there's no other players involved. There's no trade. There's nobody you got to compete with except the other teams, and you got the money, and you just fourth seed in the East. So it's a question of whether they want to come to play in New York, whether they want to play for Tom Thibodeau. Now everybody wants to play for Tom Thibodeau, and that's fine too. I don't care about that. You don't have to play for Tom Thibodeau. Go walk, man. That's all I do. Go. You know what I'm saying? So we got possibilities, but just remember, there's guys that's unrestricted. They're available. Guys that are restricted are really semi-available. And guys that are under contract are not available. So De'Aaron Fox is not available. Then Levine is not available. Okay. Jonathan Isaac's not available. These guys are not available. You could talk about getting them, but you're not going to get them. They're not available. And all of y'all talking about trading Mitchell Robinson, do something else, man. Y'all got to be out of your mind. You don't trade Mitchell Robinson. He's 23 years old. And he's got all the talent in the world. He's a game changer. And if you can't see that, I can't help you. But no, we don't trade. I'm on the phone. I'm Scott Perry. Somebody mentioned Mitchell Robinson. I'm hanging up. You crazy. It's like him and RJ Barrett. Number one, let me explain again for the umpteenth time for you, some of y'all that just don't get it. One of the problems with the New York Knicks in our losing ways is we kept trading young talent before we can develop it. Not only that, they have shown no loyalty to the players they develop. And that I noticed in Knick Nation while I'm on my soapbox. You hate your own players, man. That's why nobody wants to come here. You gotta have some loyalty to your guys. The guys you drafted, your team drafted. Some of y'all got none. And that's why, you know what? Some people don't want to come here because of y'all. No, we drafted RJ Barrett. We drafted Mitchell Robinson. We drafted Kevin Knox. We got to give them a shot to develop. We can't just be looking off the grass is green. Then go trade them for somebody. Hell no. Those are our guys. And especially a 20-year-old RJ Barrett. Oh, he can't shoot. He can't do this. The boy is 20. He's supposed to be a junior in college. Y'all got to stop tripping. Look. All y'all was pining for Michael Porter Jr. He putting up good numbers in Denver. But they got swept. You know why? Because he can't play no defense yet. He's going to be good. But he can't play no defense yet. RJ's already a better defender than him. Okay? Y'all need to stop tripping. And then Mitchell Robinson? Please. Anyway, our core. RJ, Robinson, Randall, RQ. And then we're going to give, I'm about one more full season. I always been saying, you got to give Kevin Knox 4 full seasons. And this one, he didn't really play. So I don't even know about count this, but I want to see what he does over the summer. He's got his Kentucky crew. Kenny Payne is there with him. Julius Randle's there with him. IQ is there with him. Calipari's still pushing for him. So he got all the support he can get. I'm expecting him to come out with a motor next year. Ready to kill next year. No, this soft stuff. So I want to give him another full season. I'm not ready to give up on Kev. Kev is our guy. Should we have drafted Miles Bridges? Yes. Should we have drafted Mikal Bridges? Yes. But we didn't. We got Kevin Knox. So let's pull for our guy. That's what I'm talking about. That's a real fan. Though you're pissing on your own, you know what? Get out of here, man. Anyway, please have a good day. I think we're going to have a really good summer in New York with free agency. I think we're going to be all right starting next year. I'm looking forward to it. Next video, we're going to start talking a little bit more about the draft. But up until then, shalom.